So I'm gonna be doing this is a video which is gonna be about a article by J.L. Austin, which is called Performative Utterances. It was published in 1979. This is a article in the Philosophy of Language, and it was put in the anthology by A.P. Martinich. It's a part of an anthology of a lot of different other philosophy of language articles, and it's definitely is very important, as you know, in the philosophy of language in general. So I'm just going to be be going over a lot of the different things that are going on in this article. I highly recommend reading the article and using say you're taking a class in the philosophy of language, or even just philosophy. You should be reading the article and using certain guides, certain other textbooks or whatever. So I guess the way I want to sort of preface this is that there's the idea between a descriptive philosophy of language, or talks about names or predicates or sentences, as talking about meaning being descriptive, or saying that meaning comes from, or that names have a descriptive character. That's a lot of different kinds of things going, kind of surfacing around the descriptive theory of names, or the descriptive theory of meaning. However, there's that kind of general sort of thing without going into the details about descriptive theories of names and predicates and all that stuff, and as to what a name does and all that different things. But generally, a descriptive theory is talking about meaning as being objective in some way or another. So there's that kind of objective thing, which is kind of a lot in lots of ways stemming from Frege. For Frege said that there is meaning and there is objective meaning given any name, predicate, or sentence. To where he did talk about force and tone, but there is a set meaning for any name, predicate, or sentence, to where you can't really change the whole meaning of it by how you say it. However, on the converse, there's the idea of the utterance. Austin and Searle, and there are lots of different other figures who have used the idea of the utterance to say that that meaning is not a objective sort of thing, and that there is a utterance, to where the way that something is said can change its meaning. Descriptive theories of meaning can usually, descriptive or causal theory of names or of meaning usually boxes out any kind of context, or they usually don't allow context to factor into the meaning. Where in a utterance, context can usually be factored in, and context can change the meaning of a statement or a name or a predicate based upon how it was said and in what context. But to get more specific to this article, according to Austin, the utterance is it's either true or it's false. It reports facts or it describes, and one can decide it to be true or false, and as to whether a certain utterance is worthwhile. And given any utterance, according to Austin, one can decide if a certain utterance is sensical or nonsensical, and we can, via the idea of the utterance, we can set limits to what nonsense is, and we can set limits as to how we talk, and to what the way that we talk about things, and we can mark things off as nonsense in a way that we're not going to use that, or we're not going to talk that way anymore. And we have the idea of the descriptive fallacy, which has to do with names and descriptions. it links names and descriptions. And where it kind of the idea of linking names with descriptions is that that a name describes something or picks something out. That can sort of make finite the way that language works, but language doesn't, according to Austin, does not really work that way. He says that the uses of language are infinite, and utterance is a statement, and it is a statement like sensical thing with verbs and straight and is also straightforward, and it's not possibly true or false according to Austin. Worth the utterance for a descriptive theorist, it's going to be a true or false thing. There's going to be limits as to how any one utterance or any one name can be used. Where with Austin, it's a statement like sensical thing, but it can't. It's pretty much ambivalent. It cannot be true or false. It can be sensical or not. It's always a sensical thing because it can be said, but the way that a descriptive or a causal theorist looks at language is that it's a finite thing, and that names and predicates and sentences have objective set meanings as to how they are, and there's nothing that can really change that. But with the way that Austin is looking at a utterance is that the uses of language are infinite, and the way that one thing can be said can change. And he brings in the idea of a performative utterance, where when I say I do, I'm not describing, I'm doing. Where a performative utterance is operative. It has it's a performative utterance is like when you say I promise. I promise that I will do this or that. And if you're not really promising, that it's not performative. What makes a utterance performative is that there's a doing aspect of it. Where it doesn't represent facts, and it is an ambivalent kind of thing. Performative utterance have infelicities. That's what he uses. Searle and Austin kind of have similar opinions, but they use different words to describe it. And I will do a video about the article by John Searle called Proper Names, with which he kind of presents a similar position, but not the same. So, Austin using the word infelicity, an infelicity is an unsatisfactory part, which is failing to come off in a certain way, where something is failing to hit the mark as to what it's supposed to. They're not, I guess, one way to describe a infelicity when it comes to a utterance is that it's not on point and misses the mark. The conventional procedure by which we purport to use for our utterance must exist. The convention invoked must exist and be accepted. So there's a few different things that must occur. There must be no infelicities. The convention must exist and be accepted in the way that you're using it. And a convention is it's a thing which is made and put in place to serve a certain purpose, and the way that you're talking, your utterances, there must be a convention put in place already with which you can use, with which it can be used by your utterance. But that certain convention must exist and be accepted. The circumstances in which we purport to invoke this procedure must be appropriate for its invocation, and if that is not the case, the act we perform is void. Thus, that's also a misfire. So we cannot. Thus, if I'm getting married, and I say I do, that is a performative utterance, and that my saying I do is the action of myself becoming married. However, if I say I do and nobody's here, and I'm not getting married, that those words do not do anything. That the action is void. So Austin is giving a few different things which must be the case. There must be no infelicities. The convention invoked must be accepted, and we cannot have a misfire. Thus, we cannot just say something and not have a certain action. So, a descriptive theorist would talk about names or sentences or predicates as having a descriptive nature, where Austin is saying that they have a performative nature. There's a corresponding action to it. The same thing like to say I divorce you is I'm not married yet, but if I was married to my current fiance, if I just said I divorce you, that wouldn't do anything. Just like on The Office, there's a episode where Michael and Jan are basically running out of money, and Oscar's kind of telling him, that you should probably declare bankruptcy. He doesn't really understand what that means, so he yells in front of the office and everybody, I declare bankruptcy, and doesn't understand that is not doing anything. You're not doing anything by just yelling that. There's certain things that you have to do financially to state to your debt collectors that you do not have any money, and therefore they should stop harassing you. So there's two different things between, something being said and also something being said and an action occurring. Same thing as if you're playing a game as a kid, like playing a game like Red Rover or whatever. If, say, a person named George is not here and I just say I picked George and we're not even playing a game, that words do nothing. However, if we're playing a game and I'm picking teams and I say I picked George, that's doing something. And a infelicity is a inappropriate convention or circumstances in which a utterance cannot be used. So that is a infelicity. So it's like a hollow congratulations. That's the way that Austin says it. So to congratulate somebody but not really mean it, or to promise something and not really mean it. And so I guess I'm trying to sort of point out the few things that I've said here. There are a few different things that have to have occurred for a utterance to be truly performative. And he asks questions: how, and when is a utterance performative? It has, and there are grammatical criterion for this, and those are the few things that we've discussed here. The I promise. It's giving a promise, and it's not describing. And there's the forms I, you, he, and there's no clear distinction between performative utterances and regular utterances. So there's different things between stating versus performing. He talks about lots of different things like the forces of utterance and all these different things. But I think I've kind of said what I wanted to say. So if you think I should have included more about the forces of utterance and whatever, if you want me to do more videos, let me know in the comments below. So thank you.